At dinner, my father smirked. Your sister's the new owner of this property. You have 30 hours to get your things out. I smiled calmly. But when she tried to collect the keys, the bank notified her of the overdue payments I'd quietly stopped covering months ago. She nearly collapsed. I should have known something was off when Dad set the table like it was Thanksgiving and not just a random Tuesday. He even pulled out the good silverware, the ones Mom only used when she thought someone important might show up. But it was just us. Or maybe they thought I was the important one this time. That was their first mistake. I hadn't been back to the house since Grandpa died. Almost a year. I stayed away on purpose. There was no drama I missed, no nostalgia pulling me back. Just obligation. My lawyer called and said I needed to sign a few final documents in person to close the last chapter of the estate. I didn't even want to eat with them, but Dad insisted. Said it was the least I could do. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. The house looked exactly like I remembered. Pristine, polished, empty of warmth. Mom had kept it like a museum ever since Grandpa passed, but there were new touches. Claire's touches. A glass sculpture in the foyer, some ridiculous faux marble mirror in the hallway, scented candles that smelled like overpriced hotels. And the new Lexus in the driveway. She didn't even park in the street like a guest anymore. Dinner was awkward from the first minute. Claire and Darren sat on the far side of the table like they owned the place. Mom kept talking about how grown-up Claire was now, how she had such a good head for business. Dad chimed in occasionally, but mostly stared at me with that look he always wore when he was about to lecture me. I didn't engage. I listened. I waited. The meat was dry. The mashed potatoes were lumpy. The tension was undercooked. Then Dad folded his napkin and said it. Your sister's the new owner of this property. You have 30 hours to get your things out. That was it. No build-up. No apology. No discussion. Claire didn't even pretend to be surprised. She just gave me that tight-lipped smile she used to wear when we were kids, and she'd snitch on me to Mom and get away with it. Darren didn't say anything. Just raised his glass like they'd finally won something. I smiled. Calm, casual. Like I didn't just watch 3 people try to erase me from my own history. Because here's the thing. Grandpa didn't trust any of them. Not Dad, not Mom, definitely not Claire. That's why he left everything to me. The house, the land, the savings. All of it. He knew I'd protect it. And for a while I did. I paid the taxes. I managed the mortgage. Quietly handled the small debts he left behind. Nobody even noticed because that's how they treated me. Like I didn't exist unless they needed something. Last year Claire came to me crying, saying she wanted to help out with the property. Said she wanted to be more involved, that she finally appreciated the family legacy. I knew she was lying, but I played along. I let her think she was manipulating me. Signed a few things, gave her just enough access to feel powerful. What she didn't know was that the moment she started spending Grandpa's money like it was hers, I started pulling out. Quietly. One by one I stopped covering the payments. Let the balances slip. Watched the red letters pile up behind the scenes. And I waited. I waited for the exact moment she'd think she won. That moment was now. And dinner was just getting started. The next morning, Claire dressed like a CEO for the bank meeting she thought would solidify her new beginning. She wore heels she couldn't walk in and a white blazer that still had the tag tucked under the sleeve. I could picture the way she probably strutted into that place like it was some victory lap. Darren walking a step behind her like her personal assistant, soaking in the imagined glow of sudden wealth. They didn't tell me they were going. I only knew because I'd already arranged it. A week before that dinner I had a quiet conversation with the bank. I informed them that as of the following month, I would no longer be covering the costs associated with the property. I revoked all automatic payments, canceled the maintenance contracts, and pulled back the umbrella insurance plan I'd kept under my name, mainly because I knew Claire would never think to get one. She didn't even know what half those things were. She saw a house and thought it came free of responsibility, like it just existed handed down from heaven. But Grandpa didn't leave her a miracle. He left me a structure built over 60 years ago with a cracked foundation, a roof that needed replacing, and a mountain of deferred costs I'd been silently managing since he passed. That house wasn't a prize. It was a project. And I'd held it together for almost a year with no thanks from anyone. So when Claire walked into the bank that morning expecting a ribbon-cutting ceremony, what she got instead was a file full of overdue payment notices. Insurance, taxes, small liens tied to old repairs, and a warning that unless the balance of nearly $49,000 was settled immediately, the house would be placed under review for foreclosure proceedings. Darren apparently started arguing on the spot. He tried to convince the woman at the desk that it was all a mistake, that everything was taken care of. Claire, I heard, went dead quiet. I got the story in pieces, from the lawyer, from a friend at the bank, and eventually from the panicked string of missed calls and texts that started pouring in that afternoon. Claire called 4 times. Darren texted something snide trying to play tough. My favorite was Mom's voicemail. Bella, I don't know what's going on, but your sister's at the bank and they're saying things that don't make sense. Can you call me back? No concern. No warmth. Just a mother calling because her golden child was upset and she needed someone to clean it up. I didn't return the call. That evening Claire finally got through to me. She didn't even say hello. Just went straight into it, accusing me of setting her up, of hiding the real condition of the house, of letting her take the fall. I didn't argue. I just reminded her she'd wanted ownership. She'd pushed for it. She'd insisted. And she'd done it with Dad's help completely behind my back. If she didn't understand what ownership meant, that wasn't my problem. She hung up. That night, Claire posted a blurry picture of a glass of wine on Instagram with some caption about betrayal and snakes in the grass. Comments flooded in, friends telling her to stay strong, strangers giving her advice. Meanwhile, the inbox from the county tax office was still flagged red. The overdue bills were still mounting. The insurance lapse notice was set to trigger a fine within 48 hours. By the next morning my father called. He wasn't yelling yet, but the tone had shifted. It was the sound of a man who realized something might be spiraling out of his control. He asked me if there was any way I could pause things, maybe help stabilize the situation for now. I didn't bother pretending to think it over. I told him flatly that I wasn't involved anymore. His silence lasted a full 10 seconds before he said, "But this was your grandfather's home." Exactly. And I knew what Grandpa would have said if he saw what they were doing to it. Claire thought she'd snatched the crown. But what she inherited wasn't a throne. It was a collapsing kingdom with rotten walls and debt woven into every corner. And I wasn't going to be the one patching it up anymore. That was her job now. And she hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. By the end of that week, the panic had fully settled into their bones. Claire had gone from posting curated brunch photos to completely disappearing online. Darren's Facebook changed from obnoxious motivational quotes to total silence. And I started hearing from extended family members, people I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly reaching out with weirdly warm messages. Aunt Cheryl texted saying we should grab coffee soon. Uncle Leo sent a 2-line email asking how I'd been holding up. No one mentioned the house. But I knew why they were circling. Word had spread. Claire had told them she was the new owner of Grandpa's estate. She must have bragged endlessly before that bank meeting because now that the truth was leaking, everyone wanted to know what was really happening. But nobody asked directly. They just watched, waited, hoping to be included in whatever they thought was next. The worst of it hit when the contractor showed up. Back when Grandpa was still alive, he'd hired a local guy named Mark to do some foundation work. Halfway through the job, Grandpa had a medical emergency and I ended up sorting out the paperwork. We'd worked out a payment plan and I had been quietly sending monthly checks ever since. When I stopped, 3 months before the dinner, Mark gave it a bit of time before coming to collect. And collect he did. He knocked on the front door on a Wednesday afternoon. Claire answered. I wasn't there obviously, but I got the full story later from a neighbor who still liked me more than the rest of my family. Said Mark showed up with paperwork, copies of invoices, and a firm reminder that there was still over $14,000 owed on structural work that had already been done. Darren tried to get loud, tried to push him off the property. But Mark was patient. Come, he didn't yell. He just handed them the papers and said he'd be filing the lien by the end of the week. That night Mom called me again. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't ask if I was busy. She just launched into it, saying she didn't know about this contractor, that Grandpa must have made some kind of mistake that I had to have known. Why didn't you tell us? I asked her the same thing. Why didn't you ask me anything when you helped Claire take the house? She didn't answer. Meanwhile, Claire was drowning. With every new financial letter, every unexpected invoice, her little empire started crumbling. She didn't have the money to cover the debt and Darren's business. Some sketchy crypto-flavored nonsense had already been flailing. They started making calls. Darren called his dad. Claire called a college friend who once worked at a real estate office. Mom called her cousin in Florida who used to be a mortgage broker. Nobody wanted to help. Dad was the last to break. When he called me that Friday night, he wasn't angry anymore. He sounded tired. Said maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Asked if we could meet. I said no. I wasn't being cruel. I just didn't see the point. He'd picked his side months ago. He hung up without saying goodbye. By the end of the week, Claire was on the verge of losing the house entirely. The bank had started the paperwork. The lien was filed. And she still hadn't paid the property taxes, which meant the county was now involved. All of it had come crashing down faster than I expected. And yet they still hadn't figured out the full extent of what was coming. They hadn't even opened the letters from the HOA yet. The letter from the HOA had been sitting unopened for weeks. mixed in with pizza coupons and overdue utility bills. Claire hadn't even noticed it. That's how careless things had gotten. She didn't open any mail unless it looked like a check or a threat. But when she finally did, when her hands finally tore through that generic white envelope, everything she'd been trying to keep from collapsing came crashing down in a whole new way. The letter was brief but brutal. 3 violations: unauthorized structure in the backyard, non-compliant electrical modifications, and failure to submit any paperwork for architectural review. The violations were tied to Darren's latest idea of adding value to the property. A hideous hot tub he bought secondhand off some guy in a Facebook group. Installed it himself with 0 permits. Ran power from an outdoor outlet using some sketchy extension cords and didn't tell a soul. Claire knew, of course. He just thought nobody would care. That the HOA was lazy or wouldn't notice. They noticed. The fine was already over $3,200. And if they didn't correct everything, remove the hot tub, pull out the concrete base Darren poured without measuring, and restore the lawn to its original state, the HOA would begin formal legal proceedings. Baker. The HOA board president was the same woman Claire insulted at a neighborhood event 2 months ago. Loudly, publicly, called her tacky for wearing off-brand shoes. I found all of this out from my old neighbor Mrs. Jensen, who still called me occasionally to check in. She'd always liked me better than the rest of the family. She said it was obvious Claire and Darren were in over their heads. And she mentioned that someone had been sneaking around the backyard with a flashlight at night. Probably the HOA's hired inspector. By the time Claire reached out to me again, her voice was quieter. Not calm, defeated. She didn't yell this time. She didn't accuse me of betrayal or call me a snake. She just asked if we could meet, said she wanted to talk about the house, that she was trying to figure out a solution. I agreed to meet her. I was curious what rock bottom sounded like. She chose a cafe just outside town. One of those trendy spots with recycled wood counters and slow drip coffee. I got there 10 minutes early. She was already waiting. Hoodie, messy hair, no jewelry. Her eyes looked different. Smaller, like they'd been crying for days. We sat down and she didn't waste time. She started talking like someone confessing at a police station. Told me the whole story. The financial mess, the liens, the HOA fines, and then something I didn't expect at all. He told me about the fund. Apparently, Grandpa had set up a second account years ago. A separate maintenance fund tied to the house. A cushion in case anything major happened. Only a few people knew about it. I didn't. But Claire found out through Dad. She convinced him to help her access it, claiming she needed it to fix a few things. In truth, she drained it dry within 2 months. A $6,000 shopping spree in LA. The Lexus. A surprise birthday vacation to Tulum for one of her influencer friends. Spa memberships. Designer clothes she couldn't pronounce. All paid for with money Grandpa set aside to keep the house standing. I sat there not saying much. Let her get it all out. She didn't cry. But she looked like someone who'd just realized the walls were actually closing in. And for once there was no one left to blame. She said the words eventually, "Do you want the house back?" She said she'd sign it over. Said she couldn't handle it. Darren was already pulling away, staying out late, talking about maybe getting a fresh start somewhere else. My parents had gone radio silent after the HOA letter. The people who had backed her the hardest were now the same ones demanding answers. They wanted her to fix everything, to come up with the money to undo all the mess. But Claire didn't have anything left. No cash. No savings. No plan. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just told her I'd think about it. But here's what I didn't tell her. I already knew about the second fund. I found out 2 weeks ago. The bank flagged it when they were trying to trace payment history on the property. I'd already seen the list of transactions. Knew what she spent, where and when. Knew exactly when Darren's name started showing up on joint purchases. I'd just been waiting to see if she'd admit it. He finally did. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that Grandpa left a third account. One that Claire didn't touch. Because it wasn't in any paperwork. It wasn't tied to the house. It was left under my name only, with one specific instruction handwritten in a letter I received 3 months after his death. "You'll know when it's time." And it was time. I waited a week before responding to Claire. Not out of spite, there was just no rush. She thought she was dangling the house in front of me like a peace offering, but in reality she was offering to dump a burning ship into my lap and run. I let her sit in that silence, let her wonder if I was going to swoop in and save her from the mess she created. During that week things escalated fast. The bank filed their final notice. Darren tried to contest the lien from the contractor. Failed. The HOA added another $900 in fines. I heard from Mrs. Jensen that Darren had been seen loading boxes into the back of a rented U-Haul in the middle of the night. She said it looked like he was taking electronics, tools, and what she thought was one of the vintage dressers from Grandpa's old room. Claire was still living in the house. Oh no. My parents had finally stopped pretending. Mom sent me a single text. We didn't know everything. She lied to us too. Dad never reached out at all. I knew they were upset mostly because Claire had promised them the house would be theirs to grow old in. She even offered to build them a guest suite once renovations started. That was when she thought the inheritance fund was infinite. When she still believed money was just a matter of asking hard enough. But now she was broke. They were furious. And nobody was speaking to anyone. I showed up on a Sunday morning. Didn't call ahead. Just drove up the long driveway in my beat-up Honda, parked behind the Lexus that hadn't moved in 5 days and rang the doorbell. Claire answered in pajamas. Her hair was greasy. Her eyes had that hollow look of someone who hadn't slept. I asked if I could take a walk through the house. She didn't stop me. The living room was a wreck. Empty wine bottles, mail everywhere, dust settling in corners. The kitchen was worse. Food in the sink. Ants near the fridge. The hot tub in the backyard was still there, half drained and covered with a tarp weighed down by bricks. Darren's idea of problem solving. When I got to Grandpa's old study, I stopped. It was exactly how he left it except for the smell. A faint trace of mildew. She hadn't touched anything, probably didn't know what half the stuff in there was. His books. His collection of coins. His journals. And the old safe tucked behind the cabinet, the one Claire didn't even know existed. I opened it. Inside were some documents, a few letters and a flash drive. I'd already gone through all of it before. That's how I found out about the third account. After Grandpa passed, I received a letter from a private law office. Not the one Claire used. This was his own, separate from the family's usual legal contacts. The letter explained that he had created a separate fund accessible only by me, intended for the eventual restoration or repossession of the house. It had sat untouched for nearly a year, quietly gaining interest. And now it was enough to cover everything. The liens, the taxes, even the HOA violations. I could clean the slate. But first I needed Claire gone. I turned to her in the doorway. Told her I'd take the house. She didn't even argue. Just nodded. Said she'd be out by the end of the week. I didn't believe her. And I was right. That night, I got a call from Mrs. Jensen. She saw Claire screaming at my mom in the driveway. Something about money, about betrayal. Then Darren showed up. More yelling. Boxes thrown. Neighbors started filming. Finally, the cops came, not to arrest anyone but to stop the noise. 2 days later, Claire was gone. But what she left behind was worse than I imagined. Trash in every room. Broken cabinet doors. A smashed mirror in the hallway. One of Grandpa's old chairs, torn at the arm like someone had tried to drag it and gave up halfway. And in the garage, an old mattress covered in ash. Looked like someone had been smoking there for weeks. She left the house but not before trying to ruin it. Didn't matter. Because now it was mine again. And she had no idea that I already had the money to bring it back. They left on a Thursday. No fanfare. No dramatic exit. Just gone. Claire didn't call or even knock on my door to hand over the keys. Instead, she texted me 3 photos. One of the front hall, one of the kitchen, and one of the living room with a single word under it. Done. No punctuation, no apology. I stared at it for a moment, then closed the message and didn't reply. When I pulled up to the house later that evening, the Lexus was gone. The blinds were crooked in every window. A black trash bag was torn open on the porch as if someone had tried to drag it out and gave up halfway. They left the front door unlocked. The first thing I noticed when I stepped inside was the air. Stale, humid, and sour. Somewhere between old laundry and spilled alcohol. It didn't smell like a home. It smelled like what was left after a party no one cleaned up. Lights were still on in half the rooms. Ceiling fans spinning lazily. Cabinet doors open like they'd packed in a rush. I didn't expect it to be spotless, but I didn't expect this either. Every room had damage. Nothing too expensive, just intentional. Petty. Light switches with cracked covers. A cigarette burn in the upstairs carpet. Someone had taken a marker to the inside of one of the kitchen drawers and scrawled something I didn't bother reading. And in the garage, a busted television with shattered glass around it, next to what looked like Darren's old weights, left behind like an afterthought. In the study, one of Grandpa's framed certificates was lying on the floor, the glass cracked. I picked it up and set it back on the shelf. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anger or satisfaction. Just stillness. The kind that settles after the storm finally moves on. I spent 3 days cleaning. Alone. No help. I didn't ask anyone to come by. I filled 11 trash bags. Hired a junk removal guy who showed up late, then tried to flirt with me while tossing out moldy furniture. I power washed the back patio, ripped out the tarp-covered hot tub, and left it in pieces at the curb. I found Darren's receipts stuffed in a kitchen drawer, credit card statements, weird supplements, expensive shoes he never wore. Claire's closet was nearly empty, except for a crushed box labeled winter stuff, which was just a pile of scarves and a half-used candle. They hadn't just abandoned the house. They tried to humiliate it, to stain it. Like if they couldn't keep it, then it shouldn't be worth keeping. But what they didn't know was that this house wasn't just a building to me. It was every summer night I spent here when I was little, listening to Grandpa talk about how things were built right back in his day. It was the creak in the hallway that always meant he was up early, the drawer that stuck in the kitchen, the spot on the porch where the paint always chipped no matter how many times he repainted it. They didn't destroy anything important. They couldn't, because the house still stood. And now it stood empty. And mine. That Monday I reopened the file Grandpa left behind. The one he'd tucked in his private safe labeled Rebuild. I read through every page. Notes, sketches, lists of repairs, savings accounts, contacts he trusted. He had it all laid out like a plan for a future he wasn't going to see, but hoped I would. And at the bottom of that file I found something else. A letter. One I hadn't noticed before. It wasn't long. If they try to take this house, let them. People like that never hold on to things for long. They don't know how. And when they let go, you'll be here. Like I always knew you would be. I read it twice, folded it neatly and put it back. By the weekend I had contractors lined up. The quiet kind. Local guys. People Grandpa had worked with before. I'd already moved into his old room. The desk, the books, the chair. I wasn't changing it. Not yet. The house needed work, but it had a heartbeat again. The bad energy had left with the moving trucks. I never spoke to Claire again. My parents didn't come around either. I think they were too embarrassed, too angry, or maybe just afraid I'd say what we all knew. I warned them. I warned all of them. But I didn't need to say anything. I had the house. They had nothing. And I didn't have to lift a finger to take it back. They handed it over the moment they believed it was theirs. The first update. A few weeks passed. The house was mine again, inside and out. The contractors came through like clockwork. Patched the drywall, replaced the busted tiles in the kitchen, removed the old carpeting upstairs and cleaned out the vents, which hadn't been touched in years. The smell finally left. I replaced the blinds, painted over the scuffs, and even fixed the porch swing Grandpa built. For the first time since he died, it felt like something was finally moving forward. I didn't post about it. Didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I kept it quiet. But news still got out. One morning, I was outside repainting the fence when Mrs. Jensen came by with a coffee and a soft smile. She said she heard Claire had moved in with one of Darren's friends across town. Darren was now couch surfing, blaming Claire for everything. She also said something that stopped me mid-stroke with the brush. Apparently, my father had tried to sue Claire. He wanted to recoup some of the money he'd loaned her for the Lexus and the renovations that never happened. My mother had cut contact with both of them after that. Claire blocked them. And now no one in the family was speaking. They had imploded. But the surprise came 2 days later in a manila envelope delivered by courier. At first I thought it was more junk. Maybe something left over from the bank. But it wasn't. It was from Grandpa's old law firm. Inside was a final document I hadn't expected. Apparently the third account, the one Grandpa left under my name, had a clause. If the house returned to my control and all debts were cleared, the remainder of the account would convert to a private inheritance fund. Not for repairs. For me. It was substantial. Much more than I expected. He hadn't just planned for me to take back the house. He'd planned for me to live, really live, once I did. Travel if I wanted. Invest. Build something of my own. No more fighting to hold the house together. No more bailing anyone out. That was the final part of the plan. He trusted me to protect the house, but he never intended it to be my prison. He just needed to make sure it ended up in the right hands. And now it had. I stood on the back porch that evening with a glass of wine, watching the sun set through the trees Grandpa planted 50 years ago. The yard was quiet except for the faint sound of wind chimes he'd hung from the oak out back. They hadn't rung in a long time. But now with the house silent and still they did. Not loud. Just enough. Enough to remind me that not everything has to be taken by force. Some things find their way back to you the way they were always meant to, slowly, quietly, and completely. My sister sent me his baby shower registry, a $12,000 stroller, a luxury crib, and a down payment for a house. I laughed and said, "Absolutely not." He shouted, "Then don't bother showing up." So I didn't. And what happened next had the whole family turning on her. It all started with an email titled, "We're so excited to welcome baby Ethan." My sister's baby shower invitation complete with pastel fonts, floating teddy bears, and a link to her registry. First I smiled. She'd always been a little dramatic, always loved the spotlight, but baby showers are allowed a little fluff. I clicked the link expecting to see a few overpriced onesies, maybe an organic bottle set, a trendy mobile. Nothing prepared me for what actually loaded. There it was, a $12,000 stroller. Imported from Sweden. Custom embroidery. Real leather handle. Then a $6,800 crib from some boutique in LA that apparently only makes 5 cribs a year. A $400 wipe warmer. A diaper pail that required its own subscription service. And then at the very bottom, a contribution pool for a down payment on a house. The goal? $100,000. And not a joke in sight. I scrolled twice, then laughed so hard I actually had to sit down. I mean, I make good money, but I wasn't about to blow a paycheck so her newborn could nap in something more expensive than my first car. I honestly thought maybe she'd been hacked. Or that her husband, that smug little grifter she married, had gotten control of the registry and turned it into some kind of scam. So I called her. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some laughter and embarrassed, "Oh my God, Barbara, it's just a joke." But instead she said she didn't appreciate me calling with that tone, and reminded me that they were building a life now. That their circle was full of generous people who understood what it meant to invest in family. I told her I'd be bringing a book set and a handmade blanket, like any normal human being. She said if I couldn't support their vision, then I shouldn't bother showing up. Then, and I'll never forget this, her husband grabbed the phone and said exactly this: "If you're not going to be part of the future, then stay in the past." So I stayed. In the past. At home. With a glass of wine and a warm lasagna. And I didn't send a gift. I figured that would be it. But oh no. 3 days later I woke up to 3 missed calls, 2 angry texts from our cousin Marie, and a novel-length Facebook post from my sister that started with, "Some people just can't handle when others win." The whole post was a martyr's anthem, about fake family jealousy and how they were being punished for dreaming big. I ignored it. For a day. Then Jenny, our other cousin, sent me photos from the shower. My sister had gone full influencer mode. Professional photographer. Balloon arches the size of small buildings. A massive table labeled gift display, that apparently remained almost completely empty except for a few gift cards and a couple small boxes. No crib. No stroller. So where did the photos come from? She posted new ones the next day showing off the entire nursery, every item from the registry beautifully arranged, with a long caption about being surrounded by support. But something was off. The tags were still on everything. It took my brother exactly 5 minutes to figure it out. He reverse image searched the stroller and found it on a luxury baby rental site. You could rent these things for $300 a day. Photo shoots, influencer deals, baby showers. My sister had rented it all, taken the pictures and returned it the next morning. So now it wasn't just greed. It was delusion. Performance. A fantasy she wanted everyone to help her act out. That's when I stopped laughing. Because I knew something she didn't think I knew. And I was done playing along. The truth was I'd kept my mouth shut for too long. My sister's been like this for years. Reckless, entitled, obsessed with appearances. Most people in the family just saw her as a little over the top, a little too into labels, luxury, all that. But I knew better. I knew what she really was. Back in 2020 when she moved back in with mom and dad for a few weeks, she stayed for 6 months. She didn't pay rent, didn't lift a finger. She claimed she was job hunting, but I saw her in the middle of the day on her laptop, yelling at some online dealer for rigging a hand. She was gambling. Constantly. Poker, blackjack, sports bets, all of it. She burned through her savings in 3 months. Then she sold her laptop. Her jewelry. One night I came home and she was crying in the kitchen. Said she was in debt. Begged me not to tell mom. I didn't. I covered for her. Even lent her $1,200. That money vanished in 3 days. She told me she was going to pay me back after she hit a streak. But I let it go. I thought maybe she was just lost. But then she started stealing. She transferred money from mom's account. Bought something off an app, then returned it for cash. Claimed it was an accident. Mom believed her. Said she was under stress. Told me not to make things worse. So I didn't. And here we were 4 years later with her pregnant, married, and acting like a Kardashian in the suburbs. Demanding tens of thousands from our family for a child that wasn't even born yet. When she posted that fake nursery photo thanking everyone for making her dreams come true, I snapped. I didn't blast her publicly. I'm not like her. But I called Aunt Deb. I asked her if she really planned to contribute to the down payment fund. She laughed and said no, but admitted she thought the whole thing was a bit much. That's when I told her everything. The gambling, the fake gifts, the rentals for Instagram. I told her she wasn't helping a struggling new mom. She was funding an illusion. At first Aunt Deb was stunned. Then she got angry. Because she'd already sent them $2,000. It spread fast. Deb told her husband. He told their kids. Within 48 hours, 6 people had called me asking for the full story. I didn't hold back. I was tired of protecting someone who only ever used people. And then came the fallout. My cousin Jenny backed out of the sip and see. My uncle Rob, who had offered to help with the nursery renovation, pulled the plug and ghosted her. A few family friends who had RSVP'd suddenly had other plans. But the worst blow was from her husband's side. Her mother-in-law called my mom. She was polite but direct. Said they'd been getting weird vibes from my sister for months. Money going missing. Strange charges. Emotional outbursts. They didn't know what was going on until they heard what I told Aunt Deb. That's when they confronted my sister. And apparently she cracked. Admitted to borrowing from their account. Lied about some of it, blamed the stress, tried to turn it into a pity story. But it didn't work. 2 days later, her husband left. Not permanently at first. He told her he needed space. Said he was going to stay at his parents' place until the baby came. She was humiliated. But instead of apologizing or doing anything remotely normal, she doubled down. She showed up at my house. Middle of the day. No warning. I opened the door and she was already mid-rant. Told me I'd ruined her life, that I was jealous of her family, that everything was fine until I started spreading lies. I stood there and let her talk. Then I told her she was lucky I didn't tell everyone the rest. Because there was more. So much more. She stole money from mom again last year. $5,000. Claimed she needed it for prenatal vitamins and furniture. Spent it in a weekend at a casino in Atlantic City. Mom covered for her. But now people were done covering. 2 days after she screamed at me, mom finally cracked too. She called her and told her she wasn't giving her another cent. Then she made a group chat with the family and sent a single message. No more money. If you choose to help her, do it knowing the truth. It was over after that. My sister posted one last thing on Facebook. A vague quote about betrayal and snakes in the grass. She deleted it 6 hours later. Probably because nobody commented. But that was just the beginning of her unraveling. Part 3 is when things get worse. Much worse. Let me know when you're ready. After mom's group text, the one where she told everyone flat out, if you choose to help her, do it knowing the truth. The silence wasn't just noticeable. It was cold. No arguments. No dramatic replies. Just quiet. The kind that settles in right before everything breaks apart. It started small. Her college friend Alyssa untagged herself from all the baby shower photos. Her coworker from the yoga studio, the one she was always bragging about being like a sister, removed her from her close friends list on Instagram. And the babysitter she'd hired months in advance to help after the birth? Suddenly unavailable due to family emergency. But the biggest crack came from her in-laws. Her husband's parents. Up until that point they'd been supportive. Smiling through everything. Even when she made that ridiculous registry they said nothing. But once they heard about the gambling, the stolen money, the fake photo shoot, they cut contact. Entirely. Her husband started spending more time away. He told her it was to keep things calm for the baby. But I knew the truth. He was building his exit. Brick by brick. I could see it in his silence. He wasn't coming back. That's when she panicked. The money she got from the registry? Gone. She'd burned through it in weeks. Most of the items she posted were returns, rentals, or borrowed. The luxury crib was back in the warehouse. The stroller had been a one-day rental for $290. Even the designer diaper bag was listed online for resale. Tax still on. Then Aunt Deb emailed her. She asked for her $2,000 back. No drama. Just a short, sharp message. Considering the circumstances, I'd like my contribution returned. Hope the baby is well. No reply. The next day cousin Jenny did the same. And Uncle Rob. And Lisa from her husband's side. A woman who had never even liked our family, but had apparently sent her $500, just to be nice. Nobody got an answer. He ignored them all. Probably hoping if she stayed quiet long enough they'd forget. Instead they got louder. People started talking openly now. Nobody was hiding it. Uncle Rob told Mom he'd offered to help them redo the nursery, but after hearing she'd blown their joint savings on a sure-win parlay bet, he pulled the money and told her husband directly, "You need to get out before she takes everything." Then her husband texted me. I had never had a real conversation with him before. But now he wanted answers. Asked me if she had a problem. I didn't lie. I told him she was in deep. I told him about the online gambling, the hidden debts, the money from mom's retirement account. About how she cried to me, begged, lied, and then did it again. And again. He went quiet for a few days. Then he left her. Took his things and moved in with his parents. Told her he needed space. What he really meant was legal distance. He'd already started the paperwork to separate their finances. A friend of his worked in family law. He wasn't playing around. That was when she showed up at my house again. Alone this time. No ring. No car. She'd taken an Uber. Said she needed help. Said she was scared. She didn't cry. She looked exhausted. Not fake influencer exhausted. Real, raw, scared of the mirror, tired. I asked her how much debt she was in. She didn't answer. Just stared at me like I was supposed to fix it. I told her no. That's when the final blow landed. Our uncle, the one who co-signed a $20,000 private student loan for her years ago, got a call. She hadn't made a payment in months. She told him it was on autopay. It wasn't. He was now legally responsible for the full balance. He tried to call her. No answer. Then he called me. He said he was done. No more favors. No more support. She's not just reckless, she's dangerous, he told me. 2 weeks later, the baby was born. A boy. Healthy. Perfect. I wasn't there. None of us were. She posted a single photo on Instagram. No filters. No props. Just a dimly lit hospital room and a newborn wrapped in a generic blue blanket. No tags. No captions. Just his name and the date. And for the first time in years, she didn't ask for anything. No gifts. No fund. No second chance. But it wouldn't last. I thought after the baby was born and her husband left, she'd finally disappear. Maybe go quiet for a year, lick her wounds, come back changed. But people like her don't go quietly. They don't feel shame the way normal people do. They just wait. Watch. Plot the next move. Exactly 22 days after the birth, I saw her name pop up on Jenny's phone. Jenny and I were at a coffee shop. She turned her screen toward me like it was burning a hole through the table. The message said, "I'm in a better place now. I'd love to reconnect and rebuild what really matters." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just straight into a clean slate. Jenny didn't answer. She blocked her instead. Then came Aunt Deb's email. A copy-pasted template saying my sister was actively pursuing a repayment plan and would appreciate grace during this difficult but transformative period. I knew that language. It came straight from a bankruptcy self-help blog. Aunt Deb forwarded me the message with a single sentence. She still thinks we're stupid. Then the sympathy campaign began. A photo on Instagram. The baby asleep on a bare mattress, no crib sheets, no blanket, just an empty room and bad lighting. Caption, alone. Comments turned off. It worked for a few people. One of our old neighbors messaged me asking if she could send clothes. Another offered to drop off diapers. I didn't tell them no. But I told them the truth, that she had thrown out most of what people gave her. That she sold a brand new bottle set and used the cash for slots. People started hesitating. That's when I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I put it all together. Everything. A timeline. Copies of texts, receipts, the photo of the fake nursery, screenshots of her GoFundMe before she deleted it. A spreadsheet of debts I knew about. A list of people she borrowed money from and never paid back. I didn't send it to the family. I sent it to one person, her husband's mother. She didn't reply. But 5 days later, my sister was served with papers. Temporary custody shifted. The baby was now staying with her husband 3 days a week, moving toward a formal custody agreement. My sister's reaction? She went quiet online. No more stories. No more vague quotes about snakes and betrayal. It was like watching a switch flip. But just when I thought it was over, she pulled something I never saw coming. She applied for a job. At my office. My boss called me in, confused, holding her resume. I didn't even need to look at it. I already knew she'd lied. Claimed she worked as an executive coordinator at a luxury event firm in the city. Said she managed budgets, team leads, even celebrity accounts. That firm? Owned by a friend of mine. She never worked there. She once babysat their dog. My boss raised an eyebrow and asked if it was a joke. I handed him a printout of her baby registry, her Instagram post with the fake nursery, and a screenshot of her GoFundMe campaign from a month earlier. He nodded slowly, put the resume in the shredder and said, "That's a new one." I didn't hear from her again for a while after that, until the message came through. Unknown number. Just one line. "You've ruined everything for me." I blocked it. No hesitation. But a few days later, Mom called. Said my sister had shown up at church alone. Sat in the back. No baby. Didn't speak to anyone. Left halfway through. No scene. No performance. Just a shadow of who she used to be. I didn't know what to think. Maybe it was real this time. Maybe rock bottom had finally landed. Then I got a message from an old coworker. He sent me a link to a new GoFundMe, titled, "Help a New Mom Rebuild Her Life." Goal, $50,000. I didn't even open it right away. But when I did, I felt my stomach turn. She used a photo of me holding her baby. From the day I visited the hospital months ago. Cropped tight to hide the hospital ID tags. Made it look like we were best friends, partners in this comeback story. Her pitch was full of lies. Said she was raising her son alone, with no help from her toxic, estranged family. Said she'd left an abusive relationship. Claimed she was in therapy, working 2 jobs, trying to build something honest. And people were donating. Hundreds. That was it. This wasn't desperation anymore. It was fraud. Seeing my face on her GoFundMe page felt like being slapped in a room full of people who didn't know what really happened. There I was, holding her newborn, cropped in tight to make it seem like we were close, like I was standing by her side in her healing journey. And there she was, spinning lies to strangers for money. She said she'd been abandoned by her abusive family, that she was raising the baby alone, that she just lost her job, not true, her apartment, also not true, and her entire support system, true, but earned. She wrote, "My sister has refused to even meet my baby. I'm doing everything alone." Except the photo was from the hospital. I had met the baby. I held him before her husband did. But she cropped out the timestamp, edited out the truth, and made me her prop. It wasn't just desperation anymore. This was theft. I didn't yell. I didn't call her. I built a file. Screenshots of every lie she told. The GoFundMe text. The baby registry. Her fake resume. The fake job she claimed to have. The real job she tried to get at my office. The temporary custody agreement. The text messages to family begging for money. The ones she ignored. The ones where she promised to pay it all back and never did. Then I sent it to GoFundMe. Everything. They shut the campaign down in less than 2 days. The money, almost $3,000, was refunded. The page disappeared like it never existed. But the fallout wasn't just digital. A few of the donors were people she knew. A woman from her old yoga studio. A teacher she'd had in high school. One of her husband's old co-workers. They reached out. Some to me. Some to her. One of them, the yoga teacher, posted on Facebook, "I donated to a GoFundMe for a woman I used to know. Turns out none of it was real. She used her own family as props. This is why trust is so hard these days." That post got shared. Commented on. Quietly, subtly, her last circle started to collapse. That's when she came crawling back. She showed up at Mom's house late at night. No makeup. No designer bag. Just the baby in a carrier and a grocery bag with diapers and half a box of formula. Mom told me she looked smaller somehow. Like whatever fight was in her had started to fade. She asked to come in. Said she had nowhere to go. Said she wasn't looking for help, just rest. Mom let her inside. Let her sit. Let her talk. She told her everything. That she knew I'd shut the fundraiser down, that she'd been cut off by her in-laws, that her husband had started pushing for full custody. She said she was scared of losing the baby. That she was finally ready to change. Then she made one mistake. She asked Mom to talk to me. Not to apologize. Not to explain. To convince me to back off, to stop ruining things for her. And that's when Mom told her the truth. She said, "Barbara didn't ruin your life. You did that. She just stopped covering your tracks." I wasn't even there, but I could picture it perfectly. That stunned silence she always slipped into when someone told her the truth without flinching. That moment she realized she couldn't argue her way out of it. The next day she sent a message to the family group chat. "I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm trying to fix them. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to do better. If anyone wants to see the baby, I'd be grateful. If not, I understand." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't self-pitying. It actually sounded like her. Most people didn't reply. A few did. Short messages. Jenny said she'd stop by with some baby clothes. Uncle Rob said he'd pray for her. Aunt Deb sent a thumbs-up emoji, which for her is basically a treaty. I stayed silent. Then came the email. It was long. She wrote about therapy. About the meetings she was going to. About the job she finally got at a local grocery store. She wrote about shame. About not recognizing herself. She said she didn't blame me anymore. That she understood now. That she wanted her son to have a future. Not just because he deserved it, but because he needed to see what accountability looked like. She said she hoped one day I'd come see him. That she'd save a seat at every birthday. That I'd always be welcome if I ever changed my mind. And you know what? It almost worked. But then I remembered what came after every apology. The next scheme. The next lie. The next mess I'd have to clean up. The family she pitted against me. The money she stole from Mom. The way she used my face to bait strangers online. so I didn't reply. I waited a week before opening her email again. Read it twice. Sat with it for a while, then deleted it. No reply. No response. I wasn't angry anymore. That had burned out weeks ago. What I felt was something worse. That dull, steady certainty that I was done. But the rest of the family? They weren't there yet. Jenny went to visit her 2 days after the group chat message. She dropped off baby clothes and some groceries. Said the place looked clean. Said the baby was healthy. Said my sister seemed real. Not performative. Just tired. Trying. A few days later, Aunt Deb stopped by with a box of old toys from her basement. Uncle Rob sent a small check, tucked in a card that said, "For the baby, not you." My brother texted her something neutral. Even Mom invited her over for Sunday dinner. Just her and the baby. There was no dramatic reunion. No big, welcome back. Just small, careful, reluctant steps. Like people circling a wild animal that might still bite. She didn't ask for money again. Didn't post anything online. The GoFundMe was dead. The Instagram went private. She got a real part-time job stocking shelves at a grocery store. Started taking the bus. Stopped pretending she was someone she wasn't. She texted me once more. Just one line. "Thank you for not giving up on me completely." I never responded. I didn't hate her. But I didn't trust her. And I didn't feel guilty about that. The holidays came. There was a quiet plan to get everyone together for Christmas Eve. Jenny organized it. A small dinner. No drama. No speeches. I wasn't going to go, but Mom called me the night before and asked if I'd consider showing up. Just for the baby. I said I'd think about it. That morning I got up, made coffee and transferred $1,000 to my mom's account with a note. "For the baby's first Christmas. Use it how you want." Then I stayed home. I heard later that the dinner was quiet. No tension. Just awkward smiles and safe conversations. He brought the baby. He wore a red sweater someone had donated. Apparently he smiled the whole time. They all said she was calm. Different. Not cured. Not fixed. But trying. They wanted me to know. Jenny called and said, "I think she's really working on herself." Maybe she was. But I still didn't go. Because even if she changed, I wasn't going back. I'd spent years cleaning up behind her, lying for her, covering for her. I watched her burn people down and smile while doing it. That kind of damage leaves marks. Even if she rebuilt her life perfectly, mine had scars from hers. She still sends updates sometimes. Photos of the baby. Quick notes. She stopped asking me for things, which is the only reason I don't block her entirely.